So, okay, so I want to do some joinery drawings for this reception desk now. And so I'm going to show you a few different ways of getting, firstly, the views set up. That's probably the key idea when you're starting to do this before we get into modelling. So, you all remember how to make call-outs, I'm sure?
Yes.
View tab, call-out, and you click and drag over the area that you want. And I've got a few things together in this area, so I'm going to get a nice big call out that covers that whole reception area and picks up all of the units, and then I can break it up into smaller plans for each unit after that. Okay, so I've got my call out, I've selected it, and I can right click and go to view, and that of course opens the call out view, and I'll right click and straight away rename that view and call it level 35 reception. If I can spell. Yep, there we are. Okay, so you might have seen when you go to make a call out, it will flip it down to the next scale below, but because this started at 1 to 200, it's only gone to 1 to 100. Right, so what scale do you think joinery drawings should be?
1 to 20.
Exactly, always 1 to 20, that's right. Unless it's smaller. Details you go down to 1 to 5 often, but for the main joinery drawings, 1 to 20 is generally perfect. So then you can of course adjust the edge of the view if you want to bring it in over the walls. Okay, so we've got a pretty good view that can be then used to reference the other units well, from this view. So I'm going to then duplicate this view. So right click, duplicate, and I'm not worrying about choosing duplicate with detailing here because there is no detailing. And so then I'm just going to show you, if I go back to the original floor plan that had my reference, then you can see if I move this tag away, just move it. Sorry, it's just slipped off. So let's move the tag. There we are. So you can see there's another one there because I duplicated a call out. So that's the only issue with call outs. When you duplicate call outs, it creates another call out view, which means the reference gets duplicated, and that often just gets in the way.
You delete one of the two.
So yeah, no, because if you delete it, then that deletes the view. Yeah. So the only option really, if you want to work with call outs,
hide it.
Yeah, hide it. Yeah, you don't. So look, they're fussy like this because they want them all to be referenced. And that's good when you need to reference the views, of course, you need the references. But if you don't want the references, then again, because it's come from a call out, you're stuck with it. And you just have to remember you've got to go back and hide it. So a call out, so I made it on the view tab, I'll just show you again. View and then call out. And basically it makes this thing, which is around that area of the plan, and that's now referenced in this other plan. So it's like a part plan.
See how you put a section line, it will create a section view?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Okay,
So
yeah.
colored will make a colored view.
Yeah. So the other option, if you don't like all of the referencing that you get with callouts, you can just duplicate your floor plan and then crop it, and that's often just as good. You just don't get the referencing.
Yeah,
So
we read yesterday you had to duplicate your project because I was hiding all the finishes and stuff.
yeah.
And one trying to figure out, I realized I was like hiding from the original project. And so
That's right. Yeah, you've got to be.
Stuff.
Yeah.
I'm actually deleting from.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, they're not. You're not duplicating all the objects. You're just duplicating the view. But it's one of the key ideas in Revit. It takes people a little while to understand. We had someone in one of the other classes who was asking me, what was he asking? Basically, how to use AutoCAD with the either the filters or the layer. It's not the layer manager, but layer states. If you've used AutoCAD, might have come up with layer states. And yeah, if you have it, layer states basically let you have groups of layers. So let's say you can have all the electrical layers grouped together, and then you can turn them on and off as a group and control them together, which is good. In the past, it was really handy, but you don't need it anymore because now you can work in viewports, and you set the viewport up with the layers on and off that you want, and using that to store the setup of the layers. And it's the same with Revit. So you use the views to set up the different view visibilities that you need. So you can have, I'm going to show you that now. So here I've got reception copy, which I'm going to use just to show this reception desk. So I'll right click and I'll call it that. So I'm going to call it reception desk plan. So I just want to show this reception desk. Oops, I've just double clicked on it by mistake. I'll just get out of that. Well, I don't want all the other things. Now, to save me going and hiding each of those individually, what I'm going to do is click on the glasses and then isolate element. Right, so I've just got that. Then you can apply hide isolate to view. So that's what causes people a lot of problems, right? Because you have, again, the light bulb that you use to hide and unhide things the normal way. And when you right click on something, you go to hide in view by elements or category, but there's no isolate there. Right, so you can't isolate that way, the way you normally hide and unhide. So the only way you can isolate is with the glasses. And you all know the difference between this sort of hiding and the sort of hiding that you do by right-clicking?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the temporary hide with the glasses. So it doesn't really work with views because it gets reset when you are done with it. And it doesn't really work with printing all that well. But if you want it to work with printing and be more of a permanent hide, all you do is apply hide isolate to view. So whatever you've done with the temporary hide, it then turns that over into the real hide that you get using hide in view, whatever. Does that make sense? Yeah, yeah. When you try it, it'll make more sense. But I'll do another example. But that's the basic idea. So it's the glasses again for the temporary hiding and unhiding of things.
Yeah, if we want to get like a elevation of it.
Yeah, that'll be the next thing. So I'll do that in a second. Yeah, but that's the first thing: getting a view set up quickly using that isolate element from there, and then applying that to the view so it's a permanent change to that view. Yeah, it's just that little thing. So, and that's been in Revit for like 10 years. And then I've seen a lot of guys who started using Revit before this, or who came from other backgrounds, who I've seen spend hours, or not hours, but a long time hiding each thing that they want not showing because they didn't know how to isolate. And it's a simple thing once you know, but kind of buried a bit. So just those little things. And so, okay, so now I'll go back to the View tab, and this is just like the bathrooms we did last week. Using the elevation tool there, you can make your own elevations. Okay, so notice that if I go to place it though, what happens? None of the elements created in this view, level 35 reception desk, plan view, are visible in this view. So what do we do? Click on reveal mode. So reveal mode brings back all the things that are hidden, and you can see then there's the elevation that I made that was coming up hidden or invisible. So now in this mode I can unhide the category, and that's the one problem with that isolate option. It's good, but it hides some things by category.
So then when you get...
Yeah, just back to the light bulb, and now you can see it's got my elevation view, and I can tick the one on the left, untick the one on the right, and I've got a good elevation there looking at the front of the desk. But then, is there anything wrong, do you think, with that elevation?
It's not specific, but it's not reference.
Oh yeah, it's not referenced, that'll come. Yep, but yeah, that's right, it's not referenced. It's small, but that's the right size for 1 to 20. It's just this is a very big unit. Yeah. So it looks small, but yeah, it's the right size. But the main issue is that it's not at the right angle. It's not at the right angle. So it doesn't really make sense to have an elevation that looks at the reception desk at that angle.
I couldn't rotate it.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a trick there. So you can, if you select it, you can use rotate. Right, so that does work, and you can get it to snap to the angle of the unit, which should work if I can get the snaps to come up. Right, but that's a bit arbitrary. If I spent some time, then probably I could get it to snap. But what I'm going to do instead is then go and make another elevation. And this time, because the, I was going to say, because it's, well, first thing is because I unhid the category, I can at least see it now. And what I was trying to show you is that we'll often find the angle of the things that you've made. But it's more for walls. For something you've modeled, it's probably, well, you can see it's not as good. It's not finding it. It's at least got the direction. You can see there it's picking up the angle, the direction. Oh, you could draw a section, yeah, but then we want it to be an elevation because I just want the right symbol. I'm being fussy. Yeah, I'll do that. We definitely want sections. Yeah, so I'll do sections. But yeah, we want the elevation to be able to do the right angle. Sections are easier, so you're thinking the right way because sections will get the angle more easily. And again, I was trying to show you here, normally, if it's something like a wall, it will at least find the angle while you're doing this as well as the direction.
You can also add a line or just trace a line on top of that, and then...
That's right, you could do all of those things, but another good trick, if you draw a wall at that angle, so I'll just do one here, I bet you now it'll find it. There we are. So it does look for the things in your model when you place the elevation views, and you can see there straight away it's got the angle. So I just drew a wall.
Why is that? Why now?
Because I drew a wall there. So there's my wall. I'm done with it now, so I'll delete it, and I've got my elevation at the right angle. That's an easy way.
If you double click here,
yeah, the elevation. Yeah, that's right. So if we double click on that arrowhead, that'll open that elevation, and then we've got to set it up. So yeah, the crop region. Yeah, yeah. And so the crop region is coming in really low because, well, there's a few reasons I won't worry about it, but it's because of the way things have been done in this project. In yours, it probably won't be as bad.
So you can't actually isolate just the joinery piece.
No, not before you make the view. No, yeah.
So you have to go in and hide it from the view.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you have to follow the same thing what you did on the plan, like isolating and all those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now, yeah, from that, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you want to hide the chairs, you just hide the chairs.
Well, you probably do other way around by isolating the reception desk for it.
That's
See
it.
how with the sun glass, and how we did in the floor plan.
Yeah, that's why you isolate
from
first.
that view, you do the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's quicker rather than like hiding 100 pieces.
And then apply hide isolate to view.
And it stays like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you apply
So
it.
do this bit.
Apply hide isolate to view.
That will stay permanent.
Yeah.
In that view.
In that view.
But nothing else.
No, that's right. That's right. That's it. Yeah, it's one of those great little options. Honestly, I only found out about it a few years ago. But yeah, it changed my life when I did. And so that's a good thing. And
I don't think there was that before.
yeah, it came in like 2014, I think. Yeah.
So why that's the right angle? Why then you doing it on the other side?
We want that too. Yeah, I want that too.
Other angle.
Yeah. So every surface, you should have an elevation that's perpendicular to it. Yeah.
So you need two elevations in that case.
Yeah. Oh, probably 4.
Yeah, from the back as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yes. And so then, okay. So why am I missing part of the unit?
Because of the
The angle. Yeah, definitely.
and the crop view.
The cropping. Yeah, the cropping. So the depth of the views.
Cropping of the
Yeah, it's on the menu on the left hand side.
So when you select the arrow of the elevation view,
No.
then you can see how deep it goes. And that's got to go deeper. We need to see the whole unit. And then there we are. And this is where doing good 3D models will help you a lot. I'm going to use shortcuts from now on. So EH to hide that wall. And yep, element hide.
What does that do?
hide element.
Hide element.
Individually hide.
So Danny, in this case, you wouldn't show it that desk, like with the full wall behind it. For
No,
the
that's
ceiling.
right, exactly.
So just the wall.
Yes, just the
Yeah,
cabinet.
just the joints.
Yeah, just the joinery.
okay.
So what you do in plan, you'll sometimes show the walls that it might be attached to.
Yeah.
That's important for when they do the installation. But otherwise, you just show the unit by itself.
Or like,
Yeah, because these are shop drawings. They've got to take them in the shop and build, the parts that they're working on. That's right. Yeah, you don't want to make them think that they've got to build the wall or anything else.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But it is handy, especially in the plan, to show where the wall is in relation to your unit, so they know how to attach it.
If that was attached to the wall, though, would you show the full as part of the wall?
You would in elevation. The convention is normally that you show it dashed for some reason, but in plan you don't. But in plan you can easily show it as black solid and make it clear that it's not part of the contract. Yeah. So then we can add in detail. But even if you can get the views from the 3D model set up like this, that gives you a lot of the drawings. So maybe I'll just do one more. So back to this one, and maybe I'll do a section instead. I will do one more elevation just to go over that quickly. So I'll just draw a wall again over this, since we know that helps. And then I'm going a bit faster, put in an elevation that is facing that wall, and because I want to show you as well how to carry those settings across. Okay, so I deliberately left the wall there. You'll see in a second why I did that.
So that makes more elevation pages on the.
Exactly, yeah. So I should really be going down and showing you the different elevation views. So at the moment they've got names like 4C, 5A, and it's a good idea to rename those, so we can call this elevation reception. Well, let's just say reception 1 for now. We'll give them better names later, but at least that's a lot clearer than it was. And reception 2 for now, that'll do. Okay, so then, what's going on here? Oh, there we go. So then, so you might have noticed that I left the wall and didn't delete it straight away. So I can show you one little nice trick. I'm going to hide it this time by category. Before I was just doing it quickly and hiding each element, but I'm going to hide it by category. And you can see that's hidden all of the walls. So I can say this really good option. I'm going to get the view set up with the height that I want. And then I'm also going to hide everything else. So like I did before, isolate element, apply, hide, isolate to view. Yeah. Okay, so this time I remembered to bring the view up to include the bulkhead above, which is part of the joinery unit, so we've got to include that. It's a different unit technically, but it's still going to be in the same drawing. Okay, so I've got a good setup for my reception. Just going to bring that across. Oh, this is going to get really hairy. In fact, maybe I'll leave that out for now. We'll come back to that bulkhead. So I'm going to bring it down and just show the desk. So what if you need to do that another half a dozen times? And you probably will, because you're going to have several different elevations. So do you know how to get those settings saved so that you can apply them to lots of other views? So another great thing, and so you probably tell already, you do a lot with views in Revit, just for general management of things. So you'll often have view settings that you want to apply to a different view. I do this all the time. Every single project I work on, I do this constantly. So to save the view settings, you right click on the view name and then create view template from view. So I'll give it a name. Let's call it Joinery Elevation. Okay, so now I'll just click OK. And I'll go back and make another elevation. in my plans. Here we are. So from reception desk plan. Okay, so I'll make some for the back. So again, using that little trick of drawing a wall first helps to get the angle. And then back to elevation. And, you know, I've got it facing the right direction. Okay, and then I'll open up the view. I've got to still adjust the crop region. You can see there's my unit, but we've got a lot of other things in the way that we don't want. So instead of having to set all of that up again, all I need to do now is right click on that view and apply template properties. And then I can choose joinery elevation, click OK. And well, it didn't hide the levels by name. So, okay, so those levels by category, I mean, so those levels should have been, but they obviously weren't. So let's go and hide them the way they should have been by category. And the walls as well. No, that's the casework. That's still meant to be there. So the floors, debatable, but I'll hide them anyway, just for an example.
You probably can do that in the settings of those templates.
That's right. So what I'm going to do is update the template now.
Yeah, so you can like fine tune each little bits and pieces.
Exactly, exactly. So when you go now, if I go create view template from view, and I can just give it a new name. Let's call it Joinery Elevation 1. And here you get the option to update any of those things. So you can go here to visibility graphics and turn different categories off if you want to. And yeah, that all works. So the main thing there is checking that walls is off. Yes, walls is off. And under annotation category, we want levels. That was the other main one. There we are. Okay, so that applies to lots of things. So if you have a really complex presentation view where you've spent a long time setting up the shadows and gotten the even the exposure adjusted to a setting that's, you know, just right, and you don't want to have to go and adjust all of those settings again for a different view. Again, you just save it as a view template and you can apply that to any view. So you'll see when you need to do that, it's a huge time saver. So again, we'll just hide this manually though. I should have hidden that before, but I'll just hide it now. And then we can add detail to this later. So all of this is from the 3D model. And so I'll just rename this one, and this will be the last elevation I do. You'd need at least to have another one as well, but I'll let you try that. So elevation reception 3 will do. And why aren't they in order? I haven't spelt it properly. Here we go. Okay, I'm starting to go blind because I can't see if there's an I or not. It's the problem with staring at a screen for 20 years. I literally cannot see the letters there. It's so bad. There's got to be something missing there or something different. Who cares? Yeah, I'll fix that later. Okay, so back to the plan, and you can see then the elevation here was missing part of that unit because it also needed to be made deeper. And then, now this is where you have an issue with elevations. Because of the way this has been modelled. Right, so this has all been modelled as one piece. And that's okay when you're doing concept drawings, but when you do detailed drawings, you'll often need to split those apart. So it's a good chance to show you the trick for that. Have you ever needed to do that when you've made something with model in place, and then you want to break that up into several different pieces? And it's a bit fiddly, but there's some good tricks for that. So I'll show you. So if we go to edit and place, then I can select the part that I want made separate. And it's been done with voids. Great. So that's joined geometry too. So I'm going to have to unjoin it. Okay, this won't work. What I was going to show you though is that you can copy and paste from one family to another. So you can copy a piece using copy to clipboard, make a new family and then paste it into that. That does work, but because of the way this one's been modeled, I've got to do it a little bit differently. So instead I'll select it and then copy the whole thing with copy to clipboard, paste, align to same place. So now I've got two identical pieces overlapping. And then I can go to edit and place and delete the parts from this that I don't want. So to make it editable, we've got to unjoin it and then uncut it too, I think. Yeah, but that's what you have to do because you need to be able to work on them as separate pieces. So here now I can get the original extrusion, there it is, and this can just come back. I know it's fiddly, but that's how it is when you're trying to work from a 3D model. That's why we still teach AutoCAD, because sometimes it is easier just to go back and do it all in 2D, the way it was all done in the past. And this is the reason why. It's not always more efficient to model everything in 3D just to get things like joinery drawings. And imagine with more complex details. So this is another extrusion, which hopefully is just over on that side, so that can just be deleted. And then the void is okay. It's not doing, yep, that's fine. Now I'm going to go back, sorry. And I've got to recut that. So, God, what a pain. Yep. Yeah, it's a real shame because it often is good to be able to design things in this way, thinking about voids and everything else. But again, then to make them work for joinery drawings or construction, you've got to think about a few other things. So what I'm doing now, in case it's not clear, I'm just using cut to tie my voids again to the solid. Now we've still got one more. There we go. And you'll know it's done because you won't get a warning when you try to finish the family. So again, now I can go to edit and place with the other copy that I made, and I can delete a lot of these things over here. And then I've got to unjoin this one so I can finish editing it. And then edit this extrusion so that it's on the other side. So I know it might seem like a lot of fiddly steps, but is the basic principle there fairly clear that you often need to break things apart when you've modeled them all as one? And there are a few different options there for that. Oops, sorry, I've got to finish this. And where have I left it? Oh yes, I just got to join that one. And you'd be surprised how often this does come up. It's just one of those things. So back to cut. There we go. Done. Okay, so can you see now I've got two separate pieces. And that's really important because in this elevation, which one? So one of those elevations. I'll get it from the plan. Yeah, this one. Right, so can you see how in that elevation, it's going to pick up this unit. And we don't want that. So even if a lot of those steps weren't very clear, hopefully it then gives you a good idea why the 3D approach isn't always the best. Modeling everything in 3D just to get essentially 2D drawings sometimes isn't the most sensible way. But now at least I can show you, because I've separated those two units, and this one that's coming in and going over the desk, I can simply hide that now in the view by element, and I'm left with just my joinery unit, and I can hide this other one too. And there we are. Might seem like a lot of work just to get an elevation, when really that elevation at the moment is just two rectangles. If that's all it needed to be, of course it's much easier just to go into plan or just go and draw two rectangles in a drafting view or back in AutoCAD or something. And that's why I think still AutoCAD is used, not because people are idiots and they don't want to learn Revit, but because often it makes more sense. I know. And that's what I show people the first time when they started showing us.
Right and stuff though, so at least this,
That's the key. It's when you're updating.
Thinking involved in the AutoCAD.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. And then also if we add more detail, and I'm going to add some more detail now. So look, as I've been saying, it doesn't always make sense to do everything in 3D just to get you other drawings. But because joinery units are fairly simple, it often is sensible to make all the parts of your joinery units, and then make every board essentially the way it's going to be built, and then you've got the added bonus of getting your joinery drawings and details directly from the 3D model, even though you still will need to add things in 2D over the top. Okay, so before I go and add any more detail, I'll do a section view as well.
All comes down to how much time you put into each process that you do. For example, is it better to, because you have to spend the time modelling it accurately in the first place, if it's got drawers or covers, or in order to then be able to use Revit to create this.
Exactly. That's right.
No?
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
probably even better, you probably set up your camera first to see what you're going to see or what you're going to show. Based on that, you model, as much as is needed, rather than modeling so much, spending so much time, and then you don't even see it or don't even go to show it.
If you know you're going to have to do a detailed joinery drawing.
So from there, that's just a basic model, right? Then what Dan is showing is when you detail it, you do draw a line on top of that, which is not 3D. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So put a section line.
But the section's not necessarily going to show us
Well,
what we want to see unless
you draw it.
Not
out.
yet, no,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's just one big mass model. Yeah.
Yeah, it will just show an outline of that thing, and then you add line into it.
So then you'll put a dotted line for the interior.
Exactly. Yeah. So which is not actually a physical model; it's just a line work. You know what I mean?
So I'm sure you'll remember the trick for getting the section to snap to the angle of this. Right. So remember, when you draw a section, it won't snap very easily to other things. I think technically it does pick up the angle sometimes, but in this case it isn't. So got a few options. Reference planes would work, but reference planes are hidden. So I might go and use detail lines instead. And then just snap perpendicular to my cabinet, my desk. And then now when I go to draw a section line, you can see it's going to snap to that. Well, it should snap to the detail line. Sorry, it's not. It's going parallel to it though. So yeah, it's not snapping to it. That's funny. The first point, it won't snap to it, but now you can see how it's highlighting it.
But if you go parallel, it should snap. So if you go,
it is, yeah.
If you go rather than perpendicular.
I'm used to it like that. That's side angle. Yeah, side angle.
Okay, yeah. No,
yeah.
Sorry, I was.
Yeah. So that works. If you draw a reference plane, it will snap right onto it. But this is good enough as long as you get the angle. That's all that's important. So then we can delete that detail line and we can flip this either way, I suppose. Doesn't matter if it goes the other way. And then go and look at that view. So again, we've got to tidy it up just like before. I can apply the template to it. So again, apply template properties, and I can use the, even though they're made from elevations, you can use those on sections. So that's done a lot of the cleaning up, but I still need to go and hide some other things. So shortcuts are really good here. VH for view hide to hide the category, and then EH to hide individual elements. All right, so yeah, they can all be hidden. And then of course cropping is going to crop out a lot of those things anyway. Right, so I've got a section, and with joinery drawings you can actually do true sections. If you want to do them as elevations like this, where you're showing the elevation beyond the part that's being cut, that's actually good as well. Technically that's a combined section and elevation together. But there is actually the option to do, again, what's called a true section, which would just be the part that it's cutting. And you probably wouldn't have seen a lot of those because it's mostly engineers who do true sections. But again, it's an option for you when you're doing joinery drawings. Still, I think it's probably better practice if you've got the option to make them a combined section and elevation together. It's clearer to everyone. It's also more useful drawing. Okay, so I've got the unit there showing in those elevations and sections. And I'm going to show you in a minute how to get 2D details drawn over the top. And lots of things definitely would make a lot of more sense to draw in 2D. Drawers are a really good example. Whoever mentioned drawers, the runners. Who wants to model the runners in 3D just to get them to show in the section? No one, that's right. And I've built plenty of runners. I wouldn't want to have to model them in the computer as well. No, no one would.
Oh, you didn't model?
No, God, no. No way. Even when I've actually done animations where the drawers pulled out and stuff, and I still didn't model the runners. No way.
So you just put detail lines over that?
Yeah, a circle, dashed circle, 2 dashed lines above and below. That's it. That's enough. Yes, yeah, I'll dig some out in a minute, yeah. But look, I was known for doing probably too much with my joinery drawings because when I came from the joinery shop, I just modelled everything that I was used to building. Which, yeah, was actually, yeah, a really good thing. So then, with the 3D model there, I'm going to go back to the, I'm actually going to go to a 3D view. So I've got a 3D view, that's just the default view. Right, and then I'm going to right click on that view, duplicate view, duplicate with just duplicate, and then rename it and call it reception desk. And then, now my unit's not selected anymore. I could go and find it in the 3D view, but it's easier just to go back to one of the elevations or anything else where you can select it, then switch to the 3D view, and same thing as before, click on the glasses, isolate element. Right, and you can see there, this includes the bulkhead as well. I'm going to show you how to take that out in a second. So remember, I need to apply hide isolate to view to make that setting more permanent. And then using the view properties, I can turn on the section box and bring that down so that it goes around just the desk without the bulkhead. Okay, and then of course we've got a view that shows the desk really clearly in 3D. I might just, not turn the section box off, sorry, I want to hide that section box now. So for that, you just select it, right click, hide in view elements. If you ever need to bring it back, do you know how to show anything like that hidden and work on it? It's probably more obvious than you think, but just want to make sure you know. The light bulb, of course. Right, and you can work on it in that mode, so I can adjust the section box in that mode. Okay, so that's really helpful with views like this. And so then I can even model in 3D some of the detail I've been talking about. So you could use voids to cut away the parts that you don't want, or you could just model the pieces of board directly. Either way, it'll work. So, and you can do a mix of those two approaches. So maybe again, just to get a bit of detail, I'll start with a void. So what do? Select the piece, edit and place. If it's a one-off unit, you should be modeling it that way. It shouldn't be a family. Model in place is the better option for one-off units, and reception desks tend to be one-off units. So I'll make just do a simple extrusion, word extrusion, and maybe pick the legs, and we can see what you remember about joinery standards. So how high is the kickboard normally? Yeah, 80 is probably good actually. I've always done them 100, but lower is probably a bit nicer if you can. Yeah, so if you want to do lower, that's good. Even down to 50 might be good. Yeah, right, that's good, yeah. Because I know the more stylish ones do have lower kickboards, so that's good. And then, yeah, just make sure you don't go right down because then it's dangerous and that's horrible. But yeah, I'll do them 50. And then how deep?
It doesn't go all the way out.
No, just how far from the door to the kickboard?
So 50
But,
miles, 50 is what?
So,
100?
yeah, 50, yeah. Yeah, 50, yeah, exactly, yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, 600 is right for the whole cupboard, or the whole bench, yeah. So, again, offset. I'm sure this is, just revision from us here, and so I'm going to offset these two lines, join them together if they're not already. They are, so that's all done, and then don't forget you've got the other drawings to help you, so you can always switch between views as you're working on things like extrusions. And there, the kickboard actually would go around the corner, so I don't know what I'm doing there. That would just wrap around, or would it actually? Yeah, it's where you've got to think about it. I know in the workshop we often had to work out these details as we built it, because often the designers wouldn't think about this, because they didn't, back when I was doing it in the 90s, they didn't make 3D models of all of their designs. I can tell you how many interior designers came into the workshop and got a big surprise when we told them it's not, you can't build it the way you've drawn it, because it was all 2D drawings back then, and they just forget half of the details or wouldn't even realise that they needed to do them. And then the poor old cabinet makers have to work it out. But that's just still like that with a lot of building. But more and more these days, because a lot of things are being done in 3D. All the details people often forgot about in the past, at least are being thought about. There we are. Okay, so I've got something for the kickboard. Don't know if actually it does need to go around there, but I'll have a think about that. And then the extrusion end I'll set to 50, so we'll do the nice low kickboard.
Can you just find that on the 2D, like the detail lines on the elevations?
Yeah, but see, then I have to do it on every elevation. And then also little things, when you've got lots of angles like this, then it's kind of handy that it works out all of that. Otherwise, you'd have to project that off the plan to work out, that this line is offset from this one and how much, and then see how this one is offset a bit more because the angle's different there. And you can definitely do it. I mean, in the past, I've done units just like this all in 2D. But it's kind of nice having it coming off the 3D model. Saves you a bit of thinking and drawing. And if you change it as well, then it's nice to have all the drawings updated. So that's probably a good example of something that you can get from the 3D model. But like I was saying, you can definitely draw over the top in 2D and achieve the same result. So then, for the, so let's say for the countertop. So the countertop or the desktop is often going to be a separate unit. You can see I didn't make this original model, and the person who's made it has actually used lots of voids, which kind of makes sense. So for the design, they obviously wanted the bulkhead to follow a similar shape to the desk. And then they've cut voids underneath to change the height of that desk unit, to have the two different heights there. But now that we want to put in more detail, probably makes sense to essentially remodel that. That's what I'd do. But I'm not going to make you watch me remodel all of it. I'm just going to, for now, bring this void down a little bit. So you can see it's starting at 760. What's a good height for a desk, do you think?
730, 750.
That's it. It's a hard one. It's around that though. Yeah, that's what I'd do. I've done 750 with my own because I'm not super tall, but I'm taller probably than a lot of people. And then got in trouble with the person at home because she's 5'4", 5'5". She'll probably hate me for telling you that, but she's about that. And so she made me put them down to first to 700, and then now we've ended up with about 680. So I'm going to see what this one is. This is 730. Yep, there we are. Hold on. Yep. So this isn't bad. But yeah, so my desk, my main office desk, which is huge, goes all the way around the room. 700, and then the big long part of it, I've actually made 680, which does feel a bit low for me, but it's great for someone else. And so yeah, you've got to think about it. And there's no hard and fast rule. But you can see here they've made this one 760, which is a bit high, I think. So I'm going to make it 730. And then we've got to factor in the desktop. So how thick do you think a desktop or a countertop should be?
40.
40 is pretty good.
40?
Yeah, 40 is good. These are too thin. These are about 30.
Yeah.
Just by eye. Let's measure it and be sure. Not even 30. Sorry, 20 something.
Why do you think they're too thin?
Oh, just by looking at it. Because they're not good structurally. So over this distance, it's okay because they've got pretty decent legs and the bracing and everything. But if they needed to expand a bit further, then they'd start to bend and be a bit unstable.
Do you think the same for kitchen bench tops?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Kitchen benches always 35 minimum. Even though I know a lot of people try and do the 30.
20?
Oh, well, what's the material though?
Oh, like a stone or something.
Oh, yeah, stone, no worries. Yeah, 20 is no problem. Yeah, no, it's just if it's melamine or laminate or something. Yeah, yeah, that's just board. No, for stone, 20's fine. And the spans are so small with kitchens that 20's, yeah, more than enough. You can even go lower. Yeah, and then metal as well. Metal, you can go a long way. So it's good to think about that. So I'm going to do it just as a standard laminate or something. So we'll make it. Let's just say we'll round it off to 30 because we haven't got a span very much here. So it'll be a little bit thicker than these. So then I'll take that down to 700. Right, so now I can just make another piece on top. And that'll be another extrusion. So can you see how I'm not using any complicated modelling tools? Up until now, I've just been using extrusions. But I will show a couple of good tricks even with extrusions. But is it clear to everyone that with joinery units, you should be making everything, or almost everything, out of flat pieces of board or stone or whatever it is. And because they're flat, you can always make them with an extrusion. If they're a piece that you can't make from the plan, you might need to set the plane to a vertical plane. But it's still an extrusion, which is the simplest thing, and that's really sensible for building because usually if you can't make it from extrusion, then the builders can't make it. They can't make sweeps and revolves on site. Right? They haven't got the technology. Right? So all they can do is cut flat pieces of board or other building materials into the shape you want. So there will be a case though to use a sweep, which I'll show you in a second. But here, so the extrusion starts 700, and then the top, because we're making 30mm board, is going to be 730. Okay, and so I've got my edge to my desk. Now, this is not a kitchen, so I don't need to worry about having a standard bench depth. It can be whatever we like if it's a reception desk. So I want to have an overhang. So I thought I can just show you a good little trick there. Again, especially if you're using Revit all the time, this will help you. If I go to Edit Extrusion. So again, I want to bring it out 30mm, let's say. Or maybe let's do 50, just so it really stands out. So 50. Which is too much normally, but we'll just do that. So the trick is you use offset, but turn copy off. That's a great option. Again, one of those simple little things that's been there forever. But a lot of people don't know. So if I go and choose those 2 lines, yep, it's that easy. Because I see people try and move them and nudge them and then check the dimensions and all this stuff. And yeah, you don't have to worry if you just use that little trick. Okay, so then I've got my little lip to my bench sticking out. Too much, but I just wanted to make it stand out. That looks horrible, but I'll live with it. But what I really wanted to show you then is what you do if you want to put a nosing onto that. Let's say you want to put a rounded edge onto that, which is much nicer. And for joinery drawings, you want that detail. Now, one option would be to just limit yourself to one section, and then you could draw it in 2D over the top. But I'm fussy, I want to have it come out in all my drawings, and especially in the elevations as well. So I just thought I'll show you how you can model it as well. So again, with that unit selected, sorry, I'm in the family still, so that's all right. So back to create, sweep. And it's a good example of a sweep. This is a classic one, so it's good for that. So go sketch path, pick lines, and I can pick the front edge of that desktop. Same thing over here. So if it's not clear, it's essentially projected that line down onto the floor, because that's my ground plane. So that's my path. And if you haven't used sweeps very much before, you have to do the path first, and then when you finish it, it'll give you the chance to do the profile. So you simply click Edit Profile, making sure that that option there is left on by sketch. And if you don't see the button, if it looks like that, if it's grayed out, you just need to click Select Profile to let you click on Edit Profile. Right, so now I can go back and draw. I'll just show you where I'm drawing. So I need to draw on this profile plane. So whenever you make a sweep, you need to be aware of where that profile plane is. So do you know where it goes? How does that know? Why did it put the profile plane there? I'll just zoom in so you can see it. That profile plane, it's a cross, which shows you it's a 2-dimensional plane. So why is it there?
So you can go into that view and then draw the...
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely go there. And it's put it on that segment because that was the first one I made. So when you're drawing your path, you always think about the first segment that you've drawn because that's where your plane begins. You can move it, but you definitely want to know where it's going to start off. So that's where I need to draw. So I can even draw from there, just so that it's clearer to you when you see it go to the desktop. Right, so you can see there, I've just brought it up to where I actually want it to be, but I started on that profile symbol just so that you could see how it relates that plane to where the profile is actually going to be. So in other words, it's all on the same plane. And yeah, so a lot of this is about thinking spatially. And you can be amazed how many people think they think in 3D and they think they're all across thinking spatially, and then you show them how to model things in 3D on a computer and you realize they don't. A lot of people, if they think in 3D, they think in perspective, or they don't really think about the planes that are defining everything. So this makes it hopefully a lot clearer. And when you go and then draw, sorry, I'll turn thin lines on so you can see if I draw an arc now from this endpoint down to the line below, bring it out, you can see it snaps when it's a semicircle there. So I'll just do an ugly bullnose thing, which is the old way, but it's at least nice and smooth. I actually don't hate this geometry. I think it's coming back a little bit, this sort of classical circular geometry. For a few years it was all the organic, sort of spline curves, but this is definitely coming back. But it's for the retro look. People want that sort of look sometimes. So that's good. So I'll finish it, and then now that still isn't finished because it just finished the profile. So I've got to click the tick once more to finish the sweep. So there we are. So that's the sweep profile, extruded all the way around. the front of the bench. So there we are. So we've got a nice rounded edge. And if you want to do, if you're the sort of person who wants to round off the corners of your lounge chairs and your other chairs and your other furniture, you want nice rounded corners, which is usually a good thing. Most furniture does have rounded corners rather than sharp edges. With Revit, that's usually the only way you can do it with sweeps. So it's a good thing to practice. And I haven't even begun to show you all the little tricks, but that should give you some idea. But then you might have already seen, at the end it looks pretty ordinary. Because remember, that profile it's always perpendicular to the path. So what do you think we could do there to make that follow this angle nicely and cut off?
Put a void in.
Exactly, that's right. Cut it off with a void, and then you're working exactly the way the cabinet makers do. Right, that's how they do it. They'd put the edging on like this, and then cut the end off at an angle to match the bench. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So that's why I think it's great to work like this, because you are actually working like a cabinet maker, and then that gives you a good idea how you can design the units based on the way it's built. So again, back to here, void forms, void extrusion. Again, going a bit quicker, pick lines, and I'll go on the angle. That's the angle that I need. And then the rest of it, I'll just draw some lines. And you might think this is over the top, but if you talk to Caitlin or anyone else about what they do in a cabinet making or joinery workshop, this is what those people are doing every day when they're building units. You've got 16-year-olds in there doing all of this work and understanding it. I'll never forget the architect who taught me the most, a guy called Shane Winter, who's now doing really well in Germany, actually. He's gone over there and he's doing his architecture there. But he was a cabinet maker. He went and did his full trade before going and doing his master's in architecture at the same place as me. And he was easily the best design teacher I've ever had. He was so good, and it was because he really understood building at that basic level, especially making furniture and all those great things. Yeah, so that's why I still love doing joinery drawings. And so coming over to here, same thing. So we've got a funny angle there, not a problem, as long as we can make a void. Extrusion. And again, I'm doing it all in 3D because I just like to work that way. But you could easily go back if it's not as clear to you as it is to other people, then you can go back and do it in plan. And so there you can see here's the part that I want to slice off. So probably it is easier to draw it in plan, definitely. All right, so I've just drawn a much bigger shape than I need, but that's okay. And I'll check the start this time and just make it go to 0 so you can see it a bit more clearly. So finishing it and then going into the 3D view, so cut off perfectly. And that might give you some ideas if you've ever thought about how you get things like parabolas and it's probably getting a bit involved, but parabolas and things like corkscrew shapes, and not corkscrews, but turning threads and things like that. You can get them from classical geometry. This is a really good example. I won't say any more than that, but remember this was a semicircle, and because it's been cut at an angle, that's now a parabola. So it shows you how they used to get complex geometry before computers. So in the 19th century, you'll see all these beautiful buildings with irregular curves, things that aren't circles. They didn't make them by just going free-form, sketchy, here we go, wacky, shapes, until Art Nouveau. That's when they started doing it because the manufacturing made it possible. But until then, they didn't get complex geometry by just drawing whatever squiggly shapes they wanted to. They generated from, because they needed to do it accurately. So that was a really interesting thing for me when I worked out that you can create all these complex curves essentially from a circle. And you can see it when you start modelling them and then cutting them in different directions. That's how I learned it. So there we are. So, what seems like very simple things, but we end up with some pretty complex results. And now back into the 3D views, sorry, the the elevations and the sections. Yeah, and that's a great thing.
Would you want more detail in our elevation?
Oh yeah, of course, a lot more.
Floors, cupboards,
Yeah, every single piece.
internals as well.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got the choice. You can either do as much as you can in 3D to help you, but then you're going to hit a point where it makes sense just to draw over it in 2D.
So on that elevation, I can just go detail line and do all my dash lines and stuff.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah. So you might do the doors in 3D,
Yeah.
right? Because they're just more extrusions,
Yeah.
and then dash lines for the chevrons at least. The shelving is debatable. Sometimes it's easier just to do the shelving in 3D, but you're still going to have to put dashed lines over the top of your elevations normally to pick up the shelves. So that's 2D, really, no matter what. But yeah, so see how you go. And but the one final thing there, you can see that the line was coming up in the elevations and the other views. So do you know how to get rid of that?
Join and sweep.
Exactly, join. Yes. Yep, that's right. Yeah, so join's your best friend. When you're trying to clean up your drawings, always try using join first. There we are. How much better is that?
So let's say you do like the drawers and cupboards and whatever on that
Yeah.
elevation, and then you want to do another one with like drawing, like other detail lines for internals.
Yeah.
Do you just duplicate the view?
Oh, it's hard. No, see, that unfortunately, if you duplicate elevations or sections, it duplicates the referencing. But you're on the right track. Probably the easier option is to copy and paste the detail lines from one view to the next. It's never perfect. You've always got to adjust them, but that's, or maybe I'll show you. So, yeah, because that's a good example. So you've got the right idea. What you would do is draw your detail lines.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to have to finish this model, and then I can go to annotate and get detail lines. And I'll just use one of the presets. So we've got the dashed presets over here, just dash 0.1 pen. And then I'll just do it very roughly in the middle. All right, and then over to here, let's say it goes all the way. And then I'll just extend it a bit. Okay, so once we knew the cabinet thickness, the material there, we'd bring that back, but I'll just leave it as one dash line and then offset for my shelf thickness. So how thick should your shelves be?
18.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. They can be. Look, they often are. And if you look in the cabinet here, I bet it would be 18.
Yeah.
But the recommended thickness is 25.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if they do everything 18.
I know. Look, and a lot of people do. If they don't have to span very much, 18's okay.
Only if they only do thicker if they want that for like the look. Like if it's like an open shelving, they'll do like thicker. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
internals normally 18.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Your internals, you can get away with it because, again, you don't see it.
Yeah.
But if it's exposed shelving, definitely 25.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even for internals, because if it's got to span more than about 900, 18's not enough for it to span that.
How about glass?
Oh, glass is harder. Yeah. Glass, you've got to talk to an engineer, really, or a manufacturer.
Even
Yeah.
shelving.
Yeah, I'd say not 20, but yeah, because I mean, glass for windows is really thin.
Yeah.
It's I think it goes out 6 point, something. It's 6 point, 6 point something, and then the thickest is no more than 12 or something, but it's not that thick. So you end up with several sheets for shelving. Yeah, and so it can go up to I think it's still around 18 all up.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's probably a good starting point, but you've got to check it, and manufacturers have to go through that stuff. You can't just get it made custom usually unless you go to the specialists. There was it's a shame, there was a great glass workshop over in Piermont that I think was one of the buildings that got demolished for all the apartments there. But it was so beautiful. It was twice the size of these rooms together and just full of all sorts of windows and vases and stuff they'd made on site, and you'd go and talk to the glass makers, and but I think they're gone. And then you've just got Pilkingtons, which anyhow. So those things you've got to really check out. So let's say 25 though is my thickness. And why did it move? Because I didn't turn copy back on. Yep. So remember that. Okay, so then we've got the 2 lines for the shelving, which probably here might be too thick, because if we had lots of blades, then 18 would be absolutely fine. But let's say I'm going to do it 25. It's a big long shelf, and then I want to have this coming in my other elevations. So again, the trick is copy to clipboard, go to other elevation, and then just paste it in. So paste even a line to current view, and you can extend it, but at least you've got the same height.
But if you were to do like, go back to the other one, if you were to draw like your cupboards in one elevation, just showing what it all looks like closed. And show what it looks like open. How do you have to then duplicate that elevation, delete the lines, and draw more detail lines on there?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Then
So that's
So you can duplicate the same elevation without creating referencing over?
no, you're still going to have to go and hide the references in your plan. Yeah. Now they always sections and elevations always give you references, whereas plans only give you references if they're callouts. Yeah, I know it's a pain. I know sometimes it's easier. Yeah.
I like what you showed us last year.
Yeah, well, it's often it's good just to get a starting point from Revit, and then once you hit a wall where you're having to do too much in 3D, then back to AutoCAD and finish it off there. Yeah, and if it's something you've really put a lot of effort into, then you might have gone the whole hog and modelled everything in 3D. But yeah, it just depends. And
Dimensions on there as well.
yeah, of course. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, so you can draw all the dimensions here, and they are unique to the view, so you don't have to worry about them coming up in other places. Oh, it's brilliant. So yeah, so the key with Revit dimensioning is realising that it's the opposite to AutoCAD. So in AutoCAD, you use linear for almost everything, and you occasionally use aligned. Whereas in Revit, it's the opposite. So you very rarely use linear. If you see someone using linear all the time, they're doing it wrong. It's aligned that is your main tool.
You just can't use it linear at all. It just so restricted.
It is, yeah.
Just even think about it.
No, it's not that useful. No.
It just when you start using it, you realize this. You can't do this or that. Or you know it.
Yeah, it's painful. Whereas aligned is really good. Opposite to AutoCAD. Aligned in AutoCAD's painful, but aligned in Revit's brilliant. So here easy. I can just pick the elements, and that's a really nice thing.
But the dimension in AutoCAD in 2020, it's not dimension. Sorry, the measure.
Yeah.
Have you seen it? It's like when you hover on something, it shows you the dimension.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's it. And now AutoCAD's still getting a lot of good upgrades.
Yeah. I think it's really handy.
That dimensioning is also quicker than AutoCAD as well.
It is, yeah.
Oh, you can do that in AutoCAD just the same.
Yeah, but not by like touching each line and just dragging it all out in one here.
You can, but it's a bit more set up.
One thing good part here
it's the
now
setup
is
that takes
if you change the dimension, if you change the physical model, dimension will react to that.
Yeah, that's the
in
key.
AutoCAD, it's not.
Yeah,
it's
that's
already
it.
not integrated,
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. Yeah, there's time for both, but still, it's nice to have that. Yeah, the matching is very quick in Revit, and that's it. So, but look, so here, because the doors need to come up in all the elevations, and the doors are at different angles, that's another one I'd probably think about doing in 3D, just because you only have to do it once in the plan then, and they'll come up in all the different views, and working out those angles in AutoCAD would be a lot of work. It's kind of nice having to do the work sometimes, because then you really learn how it looks in different views, and that can help you even with the design, because designing in detail is one of those things. It takes you a while to appreciate, until you've had something built from your drawings, and then you realise that all those little details that you draw are going to be made by someone on site, and someone's going to see it. And I always tell people about the pub that I did. You all know the Cooper's Arms up in Newtown. I would have done that 6 times, at least. 6 different projects that were built. And then luckily for me, after the first one, they came back and said, we want to change it and do something else. And then that happened 6 times with 2 different clients over, about 15 years. And And it was a good thing for me because the first few times I was still learning and working things out. And I did the benches out the back, which is all completely changed now, but the back used to be all open, and now the pool table's out there, and we had benches going all the way around all of those walls. And I just did the benches the way I'd been building them in the joinery shop just before this, and did them, forgotten the height, but I think it was 400, and then I allowed 50 mil for the upholstery, which is what we did when we built them. And then, of course, they weren't made by cabinet makers and upholsterers, they were made by the carpenters on site. And so they did the bench tops 50 mil, or the benches that you sit on 50 mil, and then just did this thin cushion over the top that was about 20, if you're lucky. And that 30 mil made all the difference. And they just felt super low in that space, especially with the pool tables. And they had to go and rebuild, about 10 grand worth of benches, which would have been my fault if we hadn't had to do a rebuild anyway. And also, the carpenters should have checked the drawings properly and realised that they hadn't thought about the upholstery and didn't know how to do upholstery anyway. So, so it was probably their fault just as much. But still, until I saw these things being built, it looked all beautiful on the drawings. And then and you get a chance to refine it, and those little details really make a big difference, especially with interiors. If you ever go in there, the tiles, have a look at the tiles in the upstairs bathroom. I spent ages on that because we actually hired a team of interior designers who specified all the materials, and they did a nice job, except that they made some mistakes with the colours and the just little things with the lining up and matching the colours to the outside, and we had to get some of those tiles changed, and I had to change the details and all these fine little things you'd never notice until it's actually built quite often. But yeah, those little details do make a difference, but that's how you can put a lot of your own signature onto the designs. And so the final thing I'll say there is something that I learnt from studying mostly. If you know, now I'm going to forget his name. Carlo Scarpa? Is that the guy? Is David here? Where's he gone? He's gone, has he? He's an Italian architect. You don't know Carlo Scarpa? Is that the right name?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Carlo Scarpa.
Yeah.
Carlo Scarpa, yeah.
Yeah.
He does
So
concrete building sort of.
Yeah, lots of that sort of solid mass, geometry.
And then void form and.
So one of his big ideas was having designs. I see. He changed his look. He looked a lot cooler when he was younger. Yeah, he didn't have a moustache when he was younger, I'm pretty sure. Anyhow, I don't really look at him that much, but I do always see how they look. So his idea was infinitesimal details. So in other words, the details you see at the macro scale when you look at his whole buildings should carry through to the micro scale, and they're the same details. And you often can't tell when you look at certain things like this one, you can't even tell how big it is, right? Because those details will be the same whether you're looking at a close-up or you're looking at a thing from miles away. Yeah. And if you want some good details for like close-up stuff, you can even get it from his buildings, but if you look at his close-up details, he was an amazing architect for detailing. Yeah. Yeah, one of the few post-war Italian architects I really, really like.
I like him too.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Corona email is scary.
Oh, which one? The
Corona email. It says
Oh, right. Oh, I didn't even see that. Yeah, I'm
it says
avoiding.
there'll be more cases in the upcoming weeks.
Ah, right.
So look out.
Is it taken now?
One confirmed case in St. Lawrence.
Okay, so I'll finish that one there. Maybe it's going to be too long.